Let's create a prefab for the projectile. I chose this sprite from our asset pack, gave it a rigid body and a capsule collider. Next, I'm going to create a script for that projectile. Basically, when spawned, this projectile will simply move forward and destroy an enemy if it hits one. If it hits an enemy or simply goes out of bounds, the projectile will also destroy itself. Now to code some controls. Pretty straightforward. If the player presses space, we shoot a projectile. Let's test it. Okay, that's not what we want, but I think I know what's the problem. My projectile move function is pretty bad. Let's change it to a translate instead. And there we go, that's much better. Projectile speed is still a bit slow, but we can easily change that. A detail about Space Invaders is that only one projectile can exist at one time. You cannot shoot again with your current projectiles still exist. To implement this, I added the player projectile tag and made sure no current object with that tag exists in the scene before shooting. Great, now time to add enemy projectiles. The actual projectiles themselves are pretty much the same as the one the player shoots. However, the shooting part will be quite different. This projectile script will simply make it move, and the player will detect the collision. In the player, we're going to create a variable for lives. If a collision is detected, a life will be removed. We're also going to put a condition to check if the number of lives equals 0, and we'll display a game over in that case. Else, we'll just respawn the player in the center. Great. Now for the shooting logic. Only the last enemy of each column should be shooting. But how can we know which one that is? Well, at first I wanted to avoid every enemy running a script, but for our purposes right now, I think this will be necessary. Basically, every enemy will do a raycast, so they're going to check if the space below them is free of any other enemies. If it is, they shoot. Else, it means they're not the last one of their columns, so they'll do nothing. Just to show you, here's what a raycast looks like. Each ship casts a green line, and if an enemy is in that line, it won't shoot. Now that we can determine who can shoot, time to decide when they can shoot. For that, I simply decided to run a method every second and give them a 10% chance to shoot. That way, each enemy will shoot on average once every 10 seconds, but the moment at which they shoot is randomized. Let's test it. It works, but the enemies are all on the same timer, so sometimes multiple shoot at the same time. Also, the bullet is too slow. Changing the speed is easy once again, and to make sure enemies shoot at different moments, I added a random amount of time to the invoke repeating method to shoot. That way, they're all gonna be slightly offset when shooting. Wonderful! Now, when the player dies, I added a small function to clear all the existing bullets on the screen. And that is pretty much it. The only thing left to do is add score and a game over. I slowly created the UI for this and added a +10 score every time an enemy is killed. I also made all enemies respawn if none are left, so if the player killed them all, and I made a small game over screen. Time to test our final Space Invaders in action. And there we go, just like that we got a working Space Invaders. I put the full project download in the description below if you want to download it and try it out by yourself. I also encourage you to open it and upgrade it and add features you'd like to see for yourself. It's a very good exercise. And that's gonna be it for me today. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, follow me on Twitter, leave a comment, but most importantly, stay hydrated and I will see you next time. Follow me for me today. Thanks a lot for watching. To call this every 0.5 seconds, we'll use Unity's invoke repeating method and tell it to slider to the camera area. Oh yeah, that's not normal. Time to add some shooting. Projectile will simply move forward. I chose this sprite from our asset pack. Let's create a prefab for the projectile. I chose Chose this sprite from our asset pack, gave it a rigid body and a capsule collider. Next, I'm going to create a script for that projectile. Capsule collider. Next, I'm going to create a script for that projectile. Basically, when spawned, this projectile will simply move forward and destroy an enemy if it hits one. If it hits an enemy or simply goes out of bounds, the projectile will also destroy itself. Now to code some controls. Pretty straightforward. Destroy an enemy, destroy itself. Now to code some controls. The projectile will also destroy itself. Now to code some controls. Pretty straightforward if the player presses space. We shoot a projectile. Space, we shoot a projectile. Let's test. It. Okay, that's not what we want, but I think I know what's the problem. My projectile move function is pretty bad. Let's change it to a